Hi, everybody. Like kicking it off. You don't want to go behind somebody that's really good. So, besides Ken was great, but it's a short presentation, so you don't want to get your expectations too high there. So, in any case, I'm Tony Deanna. I'm CEO of Postup. We've been here since the beginning. So, since 2015. We've been focused on email marketing for media companies and publishers for well over 10 years now. And one of the things I really want to talk to you guys about is really how do you unlock first-party data? As an email company, right, we help publishers automate emails, send newsletters, drive traffic, right? But in a lot of cases, somebody signs up for a newsletter and 100,000 people or a million people in some cases get this same newsletter, right? And there's a ton of data on site, which is where the action happens, right? And many publishers really are struggling to unlock that data, right? So that's really what I'm going to focus on is we actually integrate with many of our publishers, just an example of over 50 publishers. And on average, only about 20% of the data is really is actually actionable. And in many cases, of that 20%, there's not enough data to really connect it. So how do you improve on that, right? How do you get it more actionable? And that's really what I'm going to talk about. So first-party data, some of the use cases if you have good first-party data, right? For one, you could segment your audience so you can see who's engaging with what content. And if you could take action on that, particularly with email, you could really drive ad revenue, you could drive engagement, you could drive more traffic, right? Targeted ad trafficking on site and in email, right? That's something you can do with first-party data. Content personalization for engagement, right? It's another thing that's really, really valuable. Targeting calls to action for email capture. So we do that for our publishers too, right? So if you know this person's coming from a certain place or they've engaged in something in the past, you can make a call to action that's personalized based on their first-party data. Optimizing paid traffic for Facebook and things like that to get people to sign up for things. And then obviously what more publishers are doing nowadays, which is starting with an email or anonymous user, but then over time, learning more about them, and if you have premium content, you can get them to subscribe, right? So these are all valuable things that help drive revenue and business outcomes. So these are all great, but how do I get at this first-party data and make it actionable? And we've been really working on that because, like I said, as an email company, you're usually a small percentage of the audience, so how do you grow that audience in email, but then how do you really take advantage of all that engagement? And what we've been able to do is through enriching, and really what we look to do is we have a simple JavaScript code that you can put on your site, and through an email send and a click on an email, you can connect and use that email to be your unique identifier, right? So we've done this with publishers, and the concept is once you integrate and leveraging Google Analytics, you can then get all the history of those engaged users. And it's really simple to do. And what we can do is we could take that history and we could bring it back into Postup, and then we could use it to target, right? So it's really, really simple. It's really lightweight. You don't need necessarily additional technologies. It's already there, and it's something that we've been able to do. And I'll show you some of the use cases as we go through this. Yeah. So email as a channel is really unique. It reaches audiences. You can reach audiences, directly at any time. They don't have to come to your site, right? You could push content out to them to their inboxes. You can control what your audiences see, right? Unlike Facebook, you can actually create the content and control what they see for advertisers and any type of content. You can monetize even when they don't visit your site. You can nurture audiences into paid subscribers, right? So emails, and then this is the interesting part. You can identify users when they visit your site. So and that's really a powerful thing. Just the way I like to think about this too is when people come to your site, now there are some publishers that may do a better job of this that have a lot of subscribers, but many of you guys are anonymous, right? So most customers that come are not necessarily signed in. But once they click through this email, and you now have that unique identifier, whenever they come back to your site, you know who they are, right? And therefore you can target them, whether it's any of those areas, right? So it's really like a registration. When you go to Facebook, you're always registered. They know exactly who you are. This click to email creates a unique identifier that all these individuals are registered. So the concept here too is when we did some of this analysis, people have a work device, a home device, phone, a new phone, right? In a lot of cases, when it's coming into your site, these are in some cases you think it's 4 different people, right? That email address is that unique identifier that can bring that all together. And if you have one individual that that is one of those devices, it may only be a little bit of data, but if you can combine it all, and you can look at it holistically, you get more data on that individual and you can take more action, right? So another example of the ability of leveraging an email as a unique identifier to kind of consolidate that. And what we realized was when we looked at this across all of our customers' sites, there was about 2.4, the average number of Google users to an email address. So where you may think there's 2 million unique users, in reality it's probably a little less than 1 million because they're combined. Now the reality is they're more valuable because you can combine them all and you can get more data and then you can take more action, right? But that's one of the interesting things that we were able to do. So let me take you through a few use cases. So here's just an example of many publishers have different types of content on their site. And people are engaging with different content. They may sign up for one newsletter, but it's going to be generic if you don't use what they're engaging with to drive content. So here's an example where we're looking at sports, travel, and health, and you got 2 individuals on their email address. We can actually pull in what they're engaging with, and then use that content to personalize the newsletter and content to drive more engagement, right? So just a simple thing that you can do. You also can say, well, these people are interested in maybe health or travel. Well, let's target advertisements to just those people that are engaging with that content, right? So you can charge higher CPMs with the advertising too, right? So actually got an example of this with apartment therapy, where they've got a huge list and amazing open rates, over 1 million people on their list. They've got 50% open rates, engaged audience, but it's a generic newsletter that goes out to everyone, and everybody's getting the same one, and it's great content and it's engaged. But they have a tab on their website that's around real estate, and they don't want to send out 1 million emails. The advertiser didn't want to access, or spend 1 million people that are not interested in real estate at that time. So what we were able to do is find the people that were engaging on the site in real estate, and we identified they had a small list of like 5,000 people that were signed up for the real estate newsletter list. Well, the reality was we found another 64,000 people just engagement. We were able to target them that were engaging in. So it took something that was 5,000 and we were able to find 65,000 people that were engaged, right? So it created some scale there, and they didn't have to sign up for the newsletter, right? We were able to figure out who they were based on that one newsletter. So some interesting things that you can do. Here's an example of a breaking news. So rather than people signing up for a breaking news alert, we could, and everybody gets the same breaking news, which is what most typically people do. You can categorize people based on what they're engaging in, and if they're not engaging with certain types of content, you don't send them the breaking news. You only send people the breaking news that are engaging with content on your site, right? So you have those indicators, and this is an example of that, where, hey, this person's engaging with sports, so only send the people that are showing, yes, they've recently engaged with sports, and those people get the newsletters, right? So different ways to manage this. It's not necessarily, we don't necessarily believe in personalized one-to-one newsletters. We like to create products, right, that are kind of scalable, that are sellable, that advertisers can buy, and that's the way we look at it. We don't necessarily think that you have to do an exact one-to-one for everybody gets their own personal newsletter. We think you put people into products and categories of content, and then you can create scale. So that's how we look at that. So, I kind of talked about, how do you leverage the existing content first-party data to help make your emails more engaging, right, and personalize and drive advertising revenue. But the other challenge that we see publishers have is you have a huge website, and you have a ton of traffic coming there, but you got a small list. So you got 10 million people coming to your site a month, and you got 100,000 people on your list, or a couple 100,000. So how do you got to get the scale up. You got to get more direct email addresses. So one of the areas that we focus on is top of the funnel, where we call email audience, and that's what I want to transition into, which is how do you actually grow that list? So we call email program design this product personalization, right? So the concept is when people come to your site, depending upon leveraging first-party data, depending upon where they're coming from, you can, rather than do various things or offer the same offer to somebody to sign up for a newsletter, you can do it based on personalized data, right? So, or different strategies, right? And we offer the technology and the strategy to our publishers to help them maximize the size of their list. So this is an example of capture widgets where, you don't want to ask for 20 things from an individual when they're first coming to the site. So you first get their email address, then you bring them in to your database or email platform or your CDP, and then after they engage with email, when they go back to the site, you ask follow-up questions, right? So those are ways to get more first-party data, but don't do it in a way that's going to inhibit them from ever giving you the email the first time, right? So these are different tactics. How do you grow the amount of data leveraging email? Here's an example of with Univision, where we just did personalization based on IP lookup. So if you were opening up the email in Florida, said welcome, actually called out hello from Florida. So those are just simple ways that you can personalize things to get people to sign up, leveraging first-party data, leveraging information that you have. So just some more examples of that. Here's an interesting one. This is one of our clients, Adweek, and it's I kind of like this one because it says if you're going to use ad blockers, at least subscribe first. Where advertising's kind of our thing, right? So kind of painful to think that people that are in the industry would be using ad blockers when they're going to Adweek, right? But it happens. So this is something where very easily. You put that up, and they can click on that, and then they can, remove the ad blocker from that site, and it works very effectively for them. Particularly, I think the call to action is pretty, at least it should, depress a few people that are maybe in the industry that are using ad blockers, saying, well, let me at least let the ad blockers go. So that works really well. So another good example there. Here's one of our clients, Chive. So the difference here is on the left-hand side, you can see, a generic Chive on offer, but then they have different products, right? So when people are on certain properties, you want to personalize, what they're engaging with to get them to sign up more effectively, right? So we do content personalization based on where they are all the time, and we've increased, and you can get multiple 4 or 5x increases with signing up people, right? So like I was mentioning earlier in the conversation, it was more about how do you take action with the first-party data that you have, leveraging email? Now I'm talking about through Audience Dev and email capture widgets, how do you get people to sign up to grow that first-party data so that your list gets scalable at a high level so you can drive more revenue? So, we also, another client of ours, obviously having categories of newsletters, right? So sometimes people can sign up with a generic category, and you get them on your list, but when they're engaging with certain content, maybe they're engaging with country, you have a country newsletter. So when they click on that, and when they get back to your site on country, you can offer up, if you have a country newsletter, and cross-promote your content. We've seen on average people that come in when you have multiple newsletters sign up for over 2.5, 3 newsletters, and you have those whales. Some people sign up for all 7 or 8 of them. And if you're doing it in a way where you're doing it based on engagement with an email and they're clicking on certain content, they get back to your site, they're interested in that content, you make the offer, and in many cases they'll sign up. So these are all good strategies to establish that direct relationship, right? So something that we focus on. Just a few more here. This is an example of cross-promoting subscriptions. So we have a real simple thing. It's called single click subscription. So you can have a newsletter, but at the bottom of the newsletter, you can have different newsletters, like little samples of content there where you could see, and all they got to do is click the button. You already have their email address. They don't have to give it to you again, right? So they've got it once. We've got it in our database. You click that button, we can just opt them into a second subscription. Real simply, real easy to do. It's part of the email template. And these are just good ways to cross-promote your products. So, okay. I think, at a high level, those are some of the ideas I just wanted to talk about. We're here looking forward to, hanging out with you guys for the next couple of days, playing some golf this afternoon. So hopefully everybody enjoys the links out there. We'll be around, tonight, and would love to talk to you more about your email program, and hopefully get an opportunity to work with you guys sometime. So thank you very much, and appreciate it. For now.
All right.
Okay. Leave this up here.
Yeah, you can leave it there. Tony.